Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and this is the Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC Radio. If you get a chance, go to stonezone.com. You can check out everything I'm doing, including a link to all of my past 77 WABC Roger Stone shows. We've had some great guests, including President Donald Trump himself. Now, when I spoke at the Turning Point USA conference, I buried the hatchet with Steve Bannon. People know that Steve Bannon and I have had our differences, and I'm not going to recount his testimony at my trial and open an old wound. In this particular case, I think Steve Bannon has legitimate constitutional issues regarding his handling of a subpoena from the January 6th committee. Now, I was subpoenaed, and I showed up, filled my legal responsibility. I testified, but I invoked my Fifth Amendment rights, not because I did anything wrong, not because I had anything to hide. No, by the way, I did not meet with the Proud Boys the night before. No, sorry, I was never in any war room at the Willard. There's a huge amount of disinformation out there that passes for fact out there in the internet. But I, in my remarks, recognized that in Bannon's case, the president had sent him a letter specifically invoking the question, the principle of executive privilege. Robert Costello, an extraordinarily able and experienced lawyer, urged Bannon at that time that he did not have to testify, that he shouldn't testify because it would actually be a violation of the law. So it was Bannon declined to testify. I actually tried to work it out with the committee, saying if they wanted to go to court immediately and have the court rule as to whether the executive privilege was in place or not, the Congress wasn't prepared to do that. The committee wasn't prepared to do that. Now, it's going to be very interesting because now that there's a subpoena from the House to Jen Psaki, who's a former press secretary for the current president, Joe Biden, regarding parts of her book, and she is declining to testify on the basis of executive privilege. Then, of course, you have the examples of the Attorney General himself, Merrick Garland. Garland, who insists that he stands for the rule of law, has declined to honor a subpoena from the House of Representatives for the audio of Joe Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur. They argue that the Justice Department has put out a transcript, and they're claiming executive privilege. In this case, Garland is actually saying that he is happy to respond to subpoenas, but only those that are legitimate. Well, this is a legitimate subpoena from a legitimate body of government. He says that a disclosure of the the Joe Biden audio tape would destroy the functions of law enforcement. I find the whole thing incredibly ludicrous. In any event, let's go to our guest, Congressman Eric Burlison, a courageous conservative who I met at the Turning Point USA conference, joins us now. Congressman, sorry for making you sit through my diatribe.
An honor to be on.
So, you have sponsored legislation in the House. I'm going to let you characterize it. I characterized what would the effect of it would be, but talk to us about the mechanics of this.
Yeah, this is, that the House, in my opinion, can't leave this chapter of this story unfinished. We need to, for the sake of history and for justice, to repudiate the January 6th committee for what it was, which was a completely biased and illegitimate committee. It was illegitimate because from its very makeup, Pelosi violated the rules when she set forth the members of the committee. She would not allow McCarthy to put any of the Republican members on the committee. And she chose two Republicans that were, that were friendly, including Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. And yet that's still assuming that was the only rule she violated. She still didn't allow McCarthy or she didn't add any additional members. The committee was supposed to be composed of 13 members instead, because it was so stacked towards Democrats. It was only 9 members. And there was no, then this other reason why it was illegitimate is there was no ranking member. The rules require that every committee has a ranking member and a minority member that serves as a counter to the chairman. There was no ranking member, and the rules on that committee that govern subpoenas say that a subpoena cannot be submitted without consulting the ranking member of the committee. Well, if there's never was a ranking member, how can you possibly submit a subpoena? And so all of the subpoenas that were submitted from that January 6th committee are completely illegitimate. They should be thrown out. And it's important for us in this Congress to set the record straight and not leave this chapter of history unfinished.
With all due respect, Congressman, I think the actions of the committee are more egregious than that. The only Republicans who were appointed were Trump haters. So in essence, it was a completely partisan inquiry. We know that they tampered with evidence. We know that they suborned perjury. A woman named Cassidy Hutchinson testified under oath, under questioning by Liz Cheney, that President Trump instructed his White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, to call both me and General Michael Flynn on the afternoon or evening of January 5th to, as Liz Cheney helpfully added, find out what was going to happen on the 6th. There were never any such conversations, neither on my part nor I've checked with General Flynn. I've never communicated with Mark Meadows. I met him once when he was a member of Congress in the green room at Fox. I've never had any communications with him at all, not that day or any other day. Hutchinson goes on to say, Congressman, that she dissuaded Meadows from attending a meeting at an alleged war room at the Willard Hotel, where I did have a hotel room, but know nothing of a war room, but that he later called Stone and Flynn essentially for a debriefing. Also, a perjurious lie. There's no meeting to be debriefed about. And again, we have never spoken to him. You have the manipulation of the videos. The videos of me that they leaked to CNN have a completely different visual track than the videos they showed in the hearing. I think we got a lot of AI here. They hired a Hollywood producer to put together this made-for-television extravaganza. We hid the witnesses that would have told us the truth. I guess my question is, why hasn't Speaker Johnson appointed a committee to investigate the actions of the January 6th committee?
Well, we do have a committee that is investigating. It's a task force that's being led by a House Administration Committee Chairman Barry Loudermilk. And that committee is working to investigate, the January 6th committee and their actions, but no actions have been formally taken as a result from their investigations. And so I think I'm just a freshman, and I'm frustrated. When I come back home, I sense the frustration from my constituents that we Republicans seem to be feckless in our response to some of they're at the end of the day, Democrats are at war against us, against American patriots like you and like Mr. Bannon and Mr. Meadows, and yet our response is to send strongly worded letters. And so, to me, this is as a freshman, we researched what can we do, and I think that this resolution that I drafted, that we have quite a few co-sponsors for this resolution, does several things. It rescinds the subpoenas, and it sends a mess. It asks the speaker to send a message to the attorney general, notifying him that Congress has declared that the committee was illegitimate and that the subpoenas were illegitimate, and therefore that any legal actions against these individuals should be dropped. That's not to say that it's going to force this Justice Department to do so, but at least it would give something to Mr. Bannon and anyone else who might face further prosecution, something that they could take to court with them.
Congressman Eric Burlison, who joins us today, is from Missouri. He served in the U.S. House since 2023. Prior to serving in Congress, Congressman Burlison was a Missouri state representative and then a state senator. He has a 100% conservative rating from national conservative groups like the American Conservative Union, as well as the Club for. He was elected as the first founding chairman of the Conservative Caucus of the House. That's very exciting. During his service in state legislature, he was named as the 2011 Missouri Republican Assembly's Legislator of the Year. He's obviously a man of enormous courage. It has to be frustrating, but I think you put your finger on the problem, and that is the Democrats lock in March step. They are all committed to a socialist vision and agenda. To them, the rules, the law, the facts, the evidence, these things don't matter. Our Republican caucus sadly includes some who are feckless, gutless, weak-kneed, lily-livered, jelly-spined, go along to get along, white wine swilling establishment Republicans who just don't want to fight. At the same time, we have some real heroes, people who are there not because they want to be someone, but because they want to do something for the country. Why do you think the speaker has not used the BLAG? Perhaps you know the actual. That's the acronym. I can't recall the formal name. Maybe you can fill that in for me.
Yeah, I don't remember it perfectly either, but it stands for bipartisan legal something.
In any event, this body would have the body to revote, which I think would have the same effect, avoiding those subpoenas, but also then, more importantly, the committee report could never be used in a U.S. court again. But for whatever reason, the speaker seems disinclined to do that.
Yes, and that's one of the strategies in filing this resolution is to. And I'm not trying to be crude or mean, but is to give the speaker courage to take a vote in BLAG. And give him, just draw attention to this topic more. And I think that the more that we draw attention to it, the more the speaker will feel the pressure to act. And I think that he wants to. Sadly, a lot of times members, as you put it very well, Mr. Stone, is that a lot of members, they'll say things like, the institutional folks won't, are not happy with that, or think that would set a bad precedent. And what that's code for is that the the longtime staff in the building say that disapprove of that strategy. Well, I didn't get elected to get approval from lifetime bureaucrats and to get approval from people in the deep state. I got elected to save America from my district and was sent there to save America. And so it's frustrating to me how many of my colleagues don't have the same motivation or goals. But I feel like the only way that we're going to move forward is to not allow those members to continue to hide their votes, to have their votes not be taken, and to stay in the swamp. I want to force us to take some of these votes and show the American people. If a member is not going to vote for this resolution, I would hope the speaker would put it on the floor anyway and make the members take a vote so they could go back and if your district is supporting, that's fine. That's fine. But my district wants to see us, do something about this weaponization of government.
Well, there are two ways to skin a cat, whether your legislation were to pass, although the chances of it, I guess it would have a direct effect on the House. I'm not a lawyer, as I often say here on the show. Let me ask you about this. The House Oversight Committee, and also your colleague Jason Smith specifically, in his committee role, as well as others, I think have done an incredible job of exposing the epic corruption of the Biden, Freudian slip, of the Biden crime family. I mean, Joe Biden looked in the eye of the American people in the last debate, and he said that it was a lie, that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, and that neither he nor any member of his family had made a penny from any foreign country. We now know that they took millions from China, from Russia, from Ukraine, from Romania, from the Chinese energy company, specifically. Hunter's very cleverly transferred his multi-million-dollar ownership in the Chinese energy company to one of his attorneys, where presumably he will ultimately get it back. Do you see an appetite developing to move to the next stage, which would be actual articles of impeachment against Joe Biden? And a connected question, as Republicans, perhaps we shouldn't even want that, since this guy, I think, is going to make a fool of himself in a debate coming up in just a few days.
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm on the Oversight Committee, and so I've been working with Chairman Comer on the investigation. I've read the suspicious activity reports. Every step of the way, as you know, we've been blocked, and they've attempted to block us from getting access to all the information. But in my opinion, there's plenty of information to vote for articles of impeachment. Because look, I mean, and the Bidens have lied multiple times to Congress. So I think that we should hold them in contempt of Congress for lying to Congress. We should be sending those recommendations to Merrick Garland so he can prosecute, and then we need to hold the vote to hold Biden, impeach Biden. But unfortunately, we don't have probably a majority of Republicans that are willing to take that vote, and so the speaker is left in a difficult situation. Does he put members does he expose those members who don't want to support an impeachment vote? Most of those members are moderate members that the party typically tries to baby, in my opinion, is the best term for it. But they keep them protected and safe from taking difficult votes. But that's the situation, Roger, is that we don't really truly have a majority of patriots. We have a majority on paper, and unfortunately, we don't have the votes to do an impeachment.
All right, folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Congressman Eric Burlison, represents Missouri in the U.S. House, has very courageously sponsored legislation that would essentially invalidate the findings of the bogus January 6th committee. And we have a little bit more with the Congressman, and we'll be right back.
This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Here in America, work is in trouble. We've offshored our manufacturing, sent away good jobs, and lost so much ability to make things. American Giant is a company that's pushing back against this tide. They make high-quality clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, promo code STAPLE20.
Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC. We are the crown jewel of talk radio. Thanks for tuning in on this gorgeous Sunday afternoon. You can always check out everything I'm up to at stonezone.com. Don't go away, because coming up is Jeff Clark, who was appointed Assistant Attorney General over two of the Department of Justice's litigating divisions. He is a Trump loyalist, now Director of Litigation for the Center for Renewing America in Washington, D.C. They are trying to destroy Jeff Clark because he zealously represented his beliefs regarding the law. He's going to join us for that conversation. A lot I want to ask him about. Right now, we're with Congressman Wayne Burlison of Missouri. He is a courageous freshman. So much for that rule that freshmen should be seen and not heard. Richard Nixon was a freshman congressman when he took on and exposed Russian communist spy Alger Hiss. Had he never done so, well, he'd never have gone to the U.S. Senate. Had he never gone to the U.S. Senate, he'd never become vice president. Had he never become vice president, he would never have become president. And that all happened in a span, folk, of 6 years. Elected to Congress in 1946 and on the ticket for vice president in 1952. Nixon tells a great story of being out of work after he got out of the Navy, going door to door at the blue chip, white shoe law firms in New York. He looked out the window and saw a ticker tape parade in which Dwight Eisenhower drove by. Nixon was then out of work. 6 years later, he would be Dwight Eisenhower's running mate. 4 years in the House, 2 years in the U.S. Senate, and on to the ticket. So the future could be indeed very bright for our guest, Wayne Burlison. He has sponsored legislation that would finally challenge the completely false, corrupt narrative put together by the January 6th committee. I learned things today that I didn't know about how the committee was not. I knew it was illegally constituted, although I think that there were court rulings that denied that. But if they have no ranking minority member, the congressman isn't right. They can't, and a minority member must approve a subpoena. Then the subpoenas to Bannon and Peter Navarro and others must indeed be non-valid. Congressman, let me throw you a little bit of a curveball. There's a subgroup of House Republicans who have recommended that we extend the age before one can receive Social Security benefits, and that we examine the income of seniors who are getting benefits so that if they have income beyond Social Security benefits, they would sustain a cut in their benefits, so-called means testing. How do you feel about this proposal?
I'm not a fan of that. I think that as Republicans, we would be converting Social Security from a program that is, it's a forced pension program, forced retirement program. But at least people are supposed to get their money back. It's not exactly the best return on investment, but at least it's a return. And we would turn that into a welfare program. And I would not, as a conservative Republican, would not want to support that. I think we would be foolish to not look at the longevity and the lifespan of individuals and recognize that as future generations, people that are not born today, that Social Security has never made a promise to, that perhaps we ought to peg the retirement rate to life expectancy. And so that if in the future life expectancy, when Social Security, for example, was put in place, I think life expectancy was 60 years old. That was the average lifespan. Today it's much higher. And so in the future, if life expectancy ends up becoming, say, 90 years old, you've now got a system that was not designed for that. And so I think that we need to own up to the promise that we've made to anyone who's put in a dime of money in Social Security. That we owe it to them to keep that promise. But I think that we should be thoughtful and explore what mechanism, how we're going to make sure that Social Security is intact for future generations.
Look, you can expect the Democrats to demagogue on this issue in the upcoming election. By the way, Donald Trump will completely and totally 100% any change in the age or cuts in benefits has made that very clear. He would veto it. But the Democrats have nothing to run on, so they're going to run on Trump's a convicted felon. That's already not working. Despite their best efforts, all we have is this show trial in New York, which is an abomination. The government could never show how any of these financial transactions were connected to some underlying crime. Same thing that happened to me. What misstatement to Congress did I make that covered some underlying crime, such as Russian collusion or WikiLeaks collaboration? It's funny how Andrew Weissman goes after me with an axe, but he fails to mention that on November 3rd, 2020, the entire Mueller report was unredacted by court order, and even Mueller, which really means Weissman, had to admit that he had no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or anything else against me, and if he had found it, which he hadn't, certainly couldn't confirm it, it wouldn't have been illegal anyway. So it is the Democrats play by a different set of rules. I also am mindful that our margin in the House is extraordinarily thin. If certain members were to resign, it's now too late to have a special election in most states, not all, but most. Then you would have Speaker Hakeem Jeffries. That's one of the scariest things I can possibly imagine. Anyway, I want to thank Congressman Eric Burlison for joining us. He is a conservative of enormous courage. I think he has been extraordinarily innovative in a way to bring public attention to the illegitimacy of the subpoenas that threaten to send Steve Bannon to jail literally just days from now. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us on The Roger Stone Show.
Thank you. It's an honor.
All right, folks, we will be right back.
This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.